When it comes to styling your product for photos, the goal is to grab attention and show your product in use while keeping your product the main focus, the star of the photo. To do this, you have to not only think about how your product will be used, but think about who will be using it and what their life looks like. And then you have to choose a setting and props that support that use and support your product as the star of the photo. If you're a beginner when it comes to styling photos, there are a lot of potential mistakes that can be made. So in this video, I'm going to cover 10 potential mistakes you may be making when it comes to styling your product photos and what to do instead. Mistake number 1 is placing your product just anywhere and snapping a quick photo. I have a golden rule: always create with intention. Product photography is simply a form of nonverbal communication. You need to be intentional when it comes to choosing the right backgrounds and props to support what you are trying to communicate and to who, if you want a very specific person to take notice. Start by picking a theme. This frosted glass tumbler and its design not only has a witch theme, but it has a coffee theme. So it would be relevant to shoot this type of product in a kitchen setting, or maybe the shopper enjoys sipping coffee while reading in a comfy bed. Pro tip: if you really want to inspire use, add coffee to the product. You could even go the extra mile and add a human element to its use. The clearer you can get on who your product is for, the easier it becomes to style it. The second mistake I see often is choosing backgrounds and props that are too busy. When your background and additional elements have a busy design, texture, or even bold colors, this can steal focus from your product. Pro tip: avoid props that have text or labels from well-known brands. As humans, we are naturally drawn to text as well as brands we recognize. This steals focus away from your product. As a beginner, I recommend choosing backgrounds and props that lean more towards the neutral side. If you are just starting out, there are a lot of inexpensive options for creating faux settings. You can use poster board, scrapbooking paper, wallpaper, wrapping paper, contact paper, bulletin board paper. These are just to name a few. If you're looking for something that's a little higher quality but still an inexpensive option, I recommend vinyl backdrops from a company like Ink and Elm. Just look at the difference. Mistake number 3 is picking random props that you have just laying around. While I highly recommend choosing props that you may already have, they need to fit the theme of your product. To stand out, you have to create marketing your customer's brain deems important, attractive, and valuable. How do you do this? You choose a setting and props that are not only relevant to the theme of your product, but even more specifically, they need to be relevant to the customer who will buy your product. This background and these props do not intentionally support the theme of this product. This product is for witchy coffee drinkers. In this photo, I intentionally chose a kitchen that's decorated for Halloween with coffee and spooky themed props. This supports the theme of the product and inspires use for the shopper. Mistake number 4 is using wrinkled fabrics. The little details do matter, and they contribute to what sets you apart from your competition. Iron or steam your fabrics to instantly elevate the quality of your photos. This is a difference you can see, a difference that makes you look more professional in your industry. Mistake number 5 is using cheap props. The quality of the props you choose reflects the overall quality of your brand. Instead of pulling a spoon from your kitchen drawer that you use every day, choose a prop that looks a little more high end. This will instantly increase the quality of your photos. Pro tip, incorporate props that complement a portion of your product. In this photo, I chose a spoon with similar tones and textures to the product lid. This creates cohesion and an overall aesthetic. Mistake number 6 is using reflective props. As a non-photographer maker, don't make it harder on yourself by choosing props or backgrounds that are reflective or have a sheen. As a beginner, ideally you want to choose elements that have a matte finish. Mistake number 7 is cluttered photos. Far too often I see makers use too many props, or they bunch the props together with the product. In both of these scenarios, there's just too much going on. The elements are cluttered. This doesn't leave room for the eye to rest, and it causes the product to blend with the additional elements. By only using a few props and leaving what is called negative space around the product, you can create a place for the eye to rest, which allows your product to stand out. A great composition for beginners is what I call the V composition. You place your product at the point of the V, and then about 6 to 10 inches back, you place the props left and right. Pro tip, choose props that are similar in size and color to help create balance in the image. Use the grid in your camera to guide you. If you have a prop that is a different color or a little larger, use it opposite of the light source. As humans, we tend to read images left to right, but sometimes the presence of more light can grab our attention and lead our eye. So we want those larger or bolder elements to be like a wall that stops us in our tracks and then directs us back to the product. Remember, the goal is for your product to be the star and stand out, and you do that by intentionally creating focus. And this leads me to mistake number 8, not blurring the background of your photo when using props. You want your product to pop and stand out, and one way to do that is to create focus with a blurred background. Additional props are great, but we want to tell the viewer that they aren't the main focus, and to do that, we need to make them a little blurry. Here is a side-by-side comparison. Notice how the photo on the right makes the product stand out more. Mistake number 9 is crooked lines. If you choose to use a background that has lines, make sure they are straight. Crooked lines look messy. By straightening your lines, this will instantly elevate the quality of your product photo. Pro tip, when you have lines in your background, use them to create balance within the image. What do I mean by this? Well, here on the backdrop, we have actual lines. So we want to make sure that we are evenly displacing the product between those lines. We also have what is called implied lines. You'll notice to the left of the product, we have less space than we do to the right of the product. By centering the product between the actual lines in the backdrop and creating implied lines of equal space between the product and props, it creates balance within the image. Mistake number 10 is poorly framing or cropping your photos when you go to shoot or edit. Maybe you crop your photos too tight to the product, or your product is too high within the image frame. As a general rule of thumb for framing when shooting and cropping, keep your product within this portion of the grid. This helps to keep the weight within the image balanced, as well as leaving a little negative space around the product for the eye to rest. A little guideline for composition that's great to use when creating those marketing graphics for social media. It's called the rule of thirds composition. With the rule of thirds, you use your camera grid and place your product in one of the bottom intersections. This option is great for marketing photos because it leaves negative space for you to add text. Pro tip, add a little contrast with color, shape, or texture to really make your product pop. Just look at the difference this one small change made. Here's to happy styling, and don't forget, Your product should always be the star.